At the intersection of innovation, technology, and the customer experience, that's where you find distinction.
From the customer's perspective, how have you defined what makes you different? And clarity is so hard for organizations. It's so difficult for brands for this fundamental reason. You not only have to define what you are very precisely, you also have to have the courage to say, this is what we are not. Well, I'm going to suggest it simply means that great isn't good enough to grow in today's changing marketplace. Man, you've been great, but now you have to take it to a better standard, because change is all around us. So if what you're doing today is what you did yesterday, it's a recipe for failure in today's world. Your brand is not a promise. Your brand is that conversation that customers have about the congruency between the promise your marketing makes and the performance that your frontline delivers.
The customers that we attract will always be more profitable than the customers we've had to pursue. So how, through the experience that we create, both in sales and in how we serve them, how do we make that attractive to customers so we create marketplace distinction? That's what my work is about.
Hi, I'm Scott McKain. I'm the author of the book Iconic and a professional speaker. You know, my favorite thing about what I get a chance to do is that you can make an impact on an organization. There are companies and leaders that correspond with me constantly that they've taken some of the advice from my books and my speeches and employ that in their organization, and they have lower turnover in employees and higher profitability. So the opportunity to make a contribution is really the best part of what I get a chance to do.
Think of Indiana Jones. When I said that, did you think of him? Probably not. Did you think of him? Probably not. But technically, Indiana Jones is an intellectual property company. Until recently, it was owned equally, 50-50, by Steven Spielberg and George Lucas. They signed the contracts. They produced the movies. They signed the deals. They owned Indiana Jones. Yet when I said think of Indiana Jones, you thought of the employee who created the experience for you. When I have an experience with your brand, I'm not thinking about a CEO or a board of directors at the home office. I'm thinking about the person at the call center or the person in front of me. I'm thinking about the individual who created that experience for me. It means that every member of your team is responsible for this. She said, "Oh, that is great. For you see, sir, Hertz can always get another car. We could never get another Mr. McKain." I didn't mean to hit him, he stopped, right? And for that instant, I became a Hertz customer for life, exactly. Avis is $1 cheaper, I don't care. When you can make it about that customer, you know them so well. You know their home. You know their desires. You know their wants. When you know them, when you make it personal, then it naturally makes it emotional. Can any individual make a difference? And may I suggest to you that is the only way a difference is made. In other words, professional services firms do not get better. Professionals in professional service get better. Nothing gets better until you and I get better. For you see, what bothered people, what scared people, is what we've already talked about today. And that is, it's not change that influences us, it's the unknown that accompanies change. But you have the skills, you have the talent, you have the ability to deliver. It's just a matter of what you'll do next.
It's not only being precise about what we are, it's being as exact about what we are not. And that's what's really hard, I think, particularly in creating a personal brand, because when it comes to a company, they can say, oh, well, we don't make those products, we make this product. But a personal brand, I think, is a little bit more difficult to attain that. We can come back to that. And the second one is creativity. And I learned a lot from research I did in your home area there in Nashville from interviewing songwriters, because when I started researching this, I thought that creativity would come first. Hey, think outside the box, all of those things we think about innovation. But I interviewed 15 songwriters, and to a person, everyone said, you got to get clear before you can get creative. And the reason we say think outside the box is because we haven't defined the box to begin with, right? So creativity is the second aspect. What's our unique twist on that? Third is communication. And what that really means is narrative. It's understanding the principles of story and how we can communicate through narrative in a way that emotionally connects us. And you've done some pioneering work on, generational differences as well, Rory. And one of the things that really strikes me is that a great story appeals to every generation. So as we try to communicate our brand story so that it's appealing in the marketplace, not just to one segment, but to all segments, having a great story is a part of that. And then the fourth and final one is a customer or client experience focus. What does it feel like to experience our brand? We think a lot about customer service or the customer experience, but a focus on it means that everything we do is, how is this brand that we're trying to create going to impact those that we seek to influence? So it's clarity, creativity, communication, customer experience focus. I use the old story sometimes about how we shoot down planes in times of battle. In World War II, what they would do is fill the skies with ammunition. It was called flak, and they would just shoot an abundance of ammunition into the air. So what technically happened is we didn't shoot down their plane. The enemy's plane ran into our ammunition because they just threw so much up there that these planes would run into the ammunition. Well, now, as we know, it's incredibly precisely targeted. And I think that's a good analogy for what we need to think about in terms of business. But I'll tell you, there comes to be a point. When I first started my speaking career, I kind of did the motivational humor, customer service kind of generic thing. And I went through a personal situation that caused me to reevaluate my business. And honestly, I was trying to look at, how do I stand out from everybody else in the crowd? And I couldn't find anything. There were a couple books. Al Trout wrote one called Differentiate or Die. There were a few things out there, but nothing really how to stand out. By the way, let me throw in real quick. The reason I use the term distinction instead of differentiation is that merely being different doesn't mean that's going to have traction in the marketplace. If I slap every customer in the face, I'm different. But it doesn't mean they're going to relate to what I'm talking about. So I'm talking about distinction, having a meaningful difference that really means something to the people that you're hoping to connect with. So, I went through that personal tragedy, and I'm looking through, and how do I stand out? And I started researching it, and really you're taking me back to really one of the toughest points in my life, because a speakers bureau that I did a lot of business with, booked me a lot, called and said, for goodness sakes, we don't get any calls asking for distinction speeches. Will you please go back and talk about customer service? And at that point, I had to make a decision. And it was the best decision, one of the best decisions of my life. But it was really hard to make at that time, because it's almost like they were dangling this check out here. If you just get away from what you've said your clarity is, if you just won't do what you're talking about, here's a check. And I turned it down. And I think that is what builds a brand. Had I accepted that, see, one of the things I find is that when people say, oh yeah, I'm that too, that's when they lose the clarity that really creates your brand in the marketplace. I had written the book on distinction, and Fairmont Hotels became a really good client. And they went through a really cool process about, what is distinctive housekeeping? What's a distinctive front desk? How do we take everything that touches the customer and even things that don't, and what would that look like? So they went through this process. They had great success with it. And I'm having breakfast with the CEO of the Fairmont Scottsdale Princess wonderful guy named Jack Miller. And he said, man, we went through the distinction thing. Now what do we do? And I didn't have an answer. I realized I'd written a book on how to create distinction, but not one how to take it to the highest level of distinction, and not one how to sustain it once you get it, or how you regain it once if you lose it. And so I started studying. It's kind of a difficult definition, but distinction means you stand out in your field. If you're a financial advisor in Las Vegas, where I live, or in Nashville, where you are, you're the go-to advisor that people are referring. That's distinction. You are at the top of your field in your industry. Yet we also know that there are businesses that transcend their industry. In Indianapolis, one of the case studies I used in the book Iconic is St. Elmo's Steakhouse. It's not just they have higher gross revenue than Tavern on the Green in New York City. They're one of the most successful restaurants in America. So it's not just that they're the best of the restaurants. Man, if you've got a car dealership in Indianapolis, you want to run your car dealership like St. Elmo's runs their restaurant. That's iconic when you've reached that level. And so as I studied iconic businesses, the old cliches like Southwest Airlines and Apple and Starbucks and all those, but even more so regionally, locally, the iconic businesses that a business that every business in a particular community respected. I found there were really 5 factors, and the first one was they play offense. I'm a sports fan, and we always heard defense wins championships. Until you hear that all the
people say that all the time. Yeah. Defense wins championships.
So I looked at the numbers, and more top offensive teams have won the Super Bowl than top defensive teams. More top-rated offensive teams have won the playoff games in the NFL than the defensive teams. Look at what's happening in the NBA right now. It's run and gun, man. The way you're successful is firing up a three-pointer, not by clamping down on defense like it was 20 years ago. So what I found was that iconic individuals and iconic organizations.
Just so you know, my high school basketball coach right now is having an aneurysm listening to this, because you're attacking the fabric. The fabric of the philosophy of that's been around for some people for a really long time.
I'm drawing a blank. Oh, where did he sign? There was a high school coach, and this will be his first year coaching Division I college, and I'm drawing a blank on where he is, but he always goes for it on 4th down. Yeah, They don't even have a punter on the team. If it's 4th and 8 on the 2-yard line, they go for it. On their 2-yard line, they still go for it. They always go for it on 4th down. And he just says, look at the data. The data shows that the benefit of playing offense and pushing the ball is always greater than defense. Now, can you apply that in a business situation? And here's what the CEO of that Fairmont group told me later on. He said, I realized that every moment I was playing defense against the competition wasted a moment I could be innovating to make them irrelevant.
Say that again.
Every moment I was playing defense against the competition wasted a moment I could be innovating to make them irrelevant.
Wow.
I just thought, when he said that, I thought, I'm writing that down, man. I got to get that. So, when we think about whether it's and hey, look, I know that speakers use the same examples a lot. Well, there's a reason for that. It's not because we're lazy. It's because it's so breathtakingly difficult to do. There are so few universal examples that you can use. But, Steve Jobs didn't sit around worried about what Microsoft was doing, and when we use that in our personal brand as an example, when we play offense, then it becomes really remarkable what we can achieve, because then others, our competition, their natural reaction will be to play defense against us, which puts us in the driver's seat. Jeff Bezos said, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Well, that creates an inherent problem. It means we're not in the room when people are saying what our brand is. So what's the second best thing that you can do? And so few of us do this. And it was part of my journey to try to create distinction for my speaking business. And that is, I went to the people that were booking me for speeches. I went to speakers bureaus and I said, when you recommend me, what do you say? And far and away, the answer at that time was a good speaker and a nice guy. Now, they thought that was great. And I realized that's a kiss of death, man. I mean, you know, Apple is not planning their next corporate event saying, hey, what we need to keynote is a really nice person. No, they want somebody that's known for something. And it's the same thing whether I'm picking a financial advisor or a grocery store or any kind of personal service or a speaker or whatever it might be. There has to be something that they say. So one of two things is going to happen. Either number one, you're going to find out that you're thought of as a generic, you know, good at what you do and a nice person. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, I want to be good at what I do and I choose to be nice, but there has to be something more than that. Second is, if what they're saying is precise and specific, then there's your biggest clue, you know, about what people are saying about you. That's what your brand is. Then at that point, you've reached the crossroad. Are you going to exploit that? And as you say, and as Larry says, we mean exploit in the best part of the term. You know, right. It's not bad exploitation. It's good exploitation.
Actively pursue it, to focus on it.
Yeah, and making the most of everything we have. And so is that the area that you want to be known for? Well, then how can we ramp up what we're doing so we accentuate that? If that's not the area, see, here's the other aspect. It's always tougher to reposition than to position. If I'm starting new and I'm trying to position, I have to create a memorable message that will strike you and that you're going to retain. To reposition, I got to get you to forget about everything you've thought about me in the past and now start thinking about me in a new way. So if you need to reposition your personal brand, you have to begin by thinking, okay, how do I come up with a message that's so compelling? Not only will it be memorable in the marketplace that I want to succeed in, but it will get those people to stop saying what they've been saying about me and start saying this. That's difficult. But if you don't understand that principle, you can't begin on the road to achieve it.